I've 27 female, been with my boyfriend, 32, over 2 years now. We met on a dating app and I had moved into his place fairly quickly, only after about 2 months of dating. Big mistake on my part, but it's too late now. If you knew our area, you'd know that rent isn't cheap. He told me from the get-go that if I moved in, I would have to pay half of the rent. And at the time, I thought that was fair, so I agreed. He told me that with rent, electricity, cable, and internet, everything comes up to around $3,500 a month. He also told me that he pays another $1,000 a month for his car, insurance, and groceries. We made a deal that I'd pay $2,000 a month as long as he paid for all the food. I've always just e-transferred him the money, as he said it would be the easiest way, so he can just make the full monthly payment to the landlord. I've never met this landlord. When I would ask him about it, he always says that he lives in the city over, so he's never around. The other day, our sink started leaking and it would not stop. It was like a waterfall coming out from under the sink. I panicked and I kept telling him to call the landlord. He kept saying no, and he called a plumber. I kept telling him it is the landlord's responsibility, but he brushed me off. After the plumber came and fixed the leak, I told my boyfriend that he should really give the bill to the landlord. He got mad at me and told me that he would deal with it himself. That's when I became super suspicious. I was pretty suspicious before, but never thought anything of it because my boyfriend has always been pretty good to me, and I genuinely thought he was a good person. I never thought he would do this. When he left for work a couple of days later, I went into his office and searched his filing cabinets. There it was, his name on the mortgage. He bought the house 5 years ago. I also saw that the mortgage comes up to, you know it, around $2,000 a month. Immediately, I started sobbing, had a panic attack. I thought about calling my mother, but was embarrassed. I still am. I packed everything of mine that I could fit in my car and I waited. He came home and I told him I needed to talk to him. I showed him the mortgage and told him I knew. He started yelling at me, asking me why I was going through his stuff. I yelled back and asked him why he stole $50,000 from me. I told him I was suspicious all along and should have listened to my gut a long time ago. He told me he didn't think we would turn into anything serious and he just wanted someone to pay the rent at first. He told me he fell in love with me but didn't know how to tell me. He then went on saying that he should be more attractive to me now since he is a homeowner, and I got so disgusted. I told him he should be ashamed of himself, and then I left. I am staying with a friend now. I don't know what to do. This all feels like a horrible nightmare, and I'm just waiting to wake up. I don't even know if I'd be able to sue him for the money, though my friend keeps telling me I can. I'm just so drained physically and mentally right now. Had anyone else had to deal with something like this? Well, you did the right thing by moving out. Did he have you sign a lease? If not, you have much more grounds for taking legal action against him. Don't even consider forgiving him. He robbed you to pay for his own mortgage. I don't think you have a legal leg to stand on. You paid to live in his home. That's legal. Plenty of couples pay the other to live in their house because it tends to be cheaper or on par with rent, but more space. He lied to you. That's enough reason to leave. But to act like it's strange that you had to pay rent just because he owns the property is ridiculous. You aren't entitled to live there for free. Actually taking someone's money to pay a completely fictional person for a completely fictional bill, both of which you made up, and then pocketing the money is pretty clear-cut fraud. I don't know the specifics of her local tenant laws, but I imagine that's pretty universally illegal. Honestly, I don't know how the relationship can recover into a healthy, respectful relationship after this. Something important to consider. This woman could have been a homeowner by herself with all the payments she's made to her boyfriend. I'm sure they talked about potentially buying a house. All this time, he has been lying to her about her future. Not cool. Definitely sue and get some money back. He cannot do this ever again. Yeah, the more details revealed in the story, the worse it got. At first I thought, well, maybe he just said rent instead of mortgage, since it's basically like rent. But he straight up lied about having a landlord and inflated the cost and probably made himself look like the good guy by taking care of the bills and desperately tried to hide it as the walls were closing in. Then had the brass to say he should seem more attractive since he's a homeowner. This is enough to end it. I wonder what other lies he's been telling her. Hopefully none that have snowballed so much and cost her so much money as a result. My favorite cousin was supposed to get married last year, but postponed to this year with only close family and friends. She invited a total of 30 people. I was excited to go as I live alone and my parents died when I was in college, so I try to make family a priority when I can. At the wedding, my aunts kept picking at me for being single, as family does when you get to your mid-20s with no partner, and something in my brain apparently broke. I don't fully understand what happened, but I started crying, just inconsolable weeping. I remember slumping to the ground crying, but after that, it's like my brain just shut off. I don't remember saying anything, but according to my relatives and the hospital, I kept rocking and crying. The next thing I remember, I was in the hospital feeling very calm. They kept me overnight, but released me, saying it was just a panic attack. My cousin's wedding did not go well because of, well, that happening. In a wedding with 30 people, one person having a not small mental health crisis is very hard to cover up or hide, and it derailed the events. She and her new husband are now raging that I ruined their wedding and now owe them the cost of the wedding. I said no. I didn't intentionally ruin their wedding. I had a terrifying mental health incident that I am seeking care for. I've never had anything like that happen before. I get nervous sometimes, but it's never been like that. I don't even like crying in front of people. I am trying to seek therapy, but the closest appointment I can get is 6 months from now. Also, I don't have the money to pay for an entire wedding. Yes, I have savings, but I have to save that for the possibility of something happening in my own life, because I'm the only person I really have. Obviously, the breakdown that happened at her wedding was an over-emotional way of putting it, but the truth is that I'm unlikely to ever find someone. I'm 25 years old. I have to take time to get my mental health in check, and even if I was 100% fine, there's no way for me to meet anyone now anyway. I only have myself. Everyone in my family has partners and a family. I'm completely alone. I even had to Uber home from the hospital because I don't even have parents anymore, as they passed 3 years ago. And you don't get closer to your cousins by going crazy around them. They're now threatening me with being cut out of the family. I told them they were only proving my point and have put everyone on mute since. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your family sound like bullies. Your aunts were dreadful to trigger that response, and your cousin is dreadful for making you feel guilty about something terrible that happened to you. You say your family is important because you don't have your parents, but these people don't behave like they deserve to have you in their life. Your family obviously prioritizes the bill of the wedding over the mental well-being of a family member. Don't pay for that wedding. You didn't do anything wrong. They're just looking for someone to blame. You are not the idiot for not paying, not the idiot for an unavoidable crisis, but your whining about being single makes me think you aren't actually being apologetic to them and are taking a woe is me attitude. You did ruin their wedding, and your breakdown is what everyone is going to remember about it. The least you could do is not make the aftermath about you too. You are all idiots here. You don't owe them the cost of the wedding. That's ridiculous. If a guest had a heart attack at the wedding, I doubt they would ask them for money. Your complete breakdown did ruin their day though. However, friends and family lose their sympathy quickly when an ill person will not get help. The way you describe the wedding event suggests that you need professional help with this ASAP. You say that you are seeking care, but there are many therapy options, even in such global situation, and your family may be reaching their breaking point supporting you. Leave them aside for the moment and focus on getting yourself the help you need. Yes, I agree with this, OP. You say nothing like this has happened before, but it sounds like you had mental health problems before that perhaps you weren't taken care of. This is just ridiculous. You're 25. You don't live on Mars. You have access to the internet and presumably a job. Get the help you need. So first of all, I believe that people don't spend others' money the way they would their own. I think paying for your own things helps to understand their worth and cost. I have 2 adult daughters, Susan, 26, and Emily, 25, with my husband. We do okay for ourselves, but don't have a ton of disposable income. We told our kids in high school that we do not have the money to pay for their college. We can help with signing loans, and they can live with us rent-free as long as they are in some type of school, but we wouldn't be able to give them money directly. We talked about how, whatever they do, they need to make sure it's worth the cost to them, either because they will make good money when they graduate or because it's their passion. Susan tried to keep her student loans as low as possible by going to a community college and living at home for 2 years before transferring to the school she really wanted, saying that it wasn't worth going into more debt when she can accomplish the same thing for less money. Emily was less concerned and went to the school that she wanted from the start and claimed it was worth it for the full college experience. Susan graduated with $20,000 in student debt, and Emily graduated with $60,000. Now that both kids are done with school and are living on their own, me and my husband decided to sell our current house and get a smaller one. There was enough profit to fully pay off both girls' student loans and have some left over for renovations, retirement savings. I had always planned to do this, but because I wanted the kids to at least plan to pay for their own school, and because you never know what can happen in life, I did not tell my kids about the plan. Now Susan is incredibly mad. She said if she had known I was going to pay off their loans, she would have just gone to the school she wanted from the beginning. I feel like it wasn't worth $60,000 of her money. Why is it suddenly worth $60,000 of mine? Susan thinks I should split the money and they each get $40,000 instead. But I wanted them to be able to live without this debt hanging over them, not leave one daughter with debt and the other with $20,000 in disposable income. Susan has complained to my family and they are split, some saying I am punishing Susan for being smart with her money, while others feel that Susan is being unreasonable and should be happy I'm paying off the loans. You are the idiot. Give both the same amount, please. One received better education and lived a joyful life, and you're trying to punish the other for being responsible. Pay $40 off for one and $20 for the other, and then give her $20 additionally. It would be really unfair not to, and your kid might be mad forever. Yeah, what an awful message to send to your kids. In addition to punishing one for being responsible, OP is also, hopefully inadvertently, playing favorites by giving one kid $40,000 more than the other. That is a huge difference and might be viewed as them loving one daughter more than the other. Also, a great way to cause resentment between the sisters too. You are so wrong. I'm with Susan. The fair thing to do would be to give them the same out of the house, regardless of the size of their debt. You are giving one daughter 3 times more than the other because she chose to run up more debt? Of course Susan doesn't see that as fair, because it's not. To be clear here, what you are doing is very generous, but you should treat your kids equally, obviously. The fact you don't seem to think anything is wrong with giving one daughter 3 times more than the other makes me suspect they have not grown up in a fair and equal household. So I suspect her hurt probably runs deeper than just this money. I, 24 female, have 2 older sisters, Zinnia, 29, and Yasmin, 31. I've been seeing Carter, 32 male, for a year and a half now. Yes, there's an age difference. No, it has not been an issue. We don't live together, and initially, he resisted a relationship with me due to the age difference, and I was wary myself. But we had a lot of conversations and gave it a shot. He's honestly the best person I've ever dated. Communication is great. He respects me entirely, never raises his voice, takes me on dates whenever we can, cooks, helps around the house. Total dreamboat, basically. He's never made me feel inferior for being younger, never tried to parent or control me, encourages my social life, and is as supportive as can be. Anyway, when we first got together, I was 23 and he was 30, turned 31 a month or so after we made things official. I mentioned offhandedly to Zinnia that I was seeing someone, and she asked the standard questions. I was honest about his age, and she said, gross, lectured me about creeps, and I dropped the topic. My sisters and I are all best friends, and to keep the peace, I mentioned him at a minimum, occasionally mentioning a date we went on or a gift he bought me. Cut to last month. We're celebrating my sister's 29th birthday. I invite my boyfriend, and this is the first time he's meeting my sisters. So it's me, my boyfriend, my sisters, and their husbands. Things are going well. Carter is charming my brothers-in-law. We have some drinks, and then it starts. Zinnia starts off with casual questions that progressively get more pointed. Do you usually date girls in their 20s? Plot twist, no he doesn't. Was he attracted to me because I was younger? So on and so forth. I finally just crack after trying to play off her questions with jokes to ease the tension and point out that yes, we have an 8-year age gap, but her and her husband have a 7-year age gap. Zinnia was 23, her husband was 30 when they met, and she's a hypocrite for being an idiot to someone who's been nothing but doting and loving towards me. We argue. She said she's trying to protect me by trying to humiliate my boyfriend, and it culminates in me telling her to get out. Her husband took her home. Yasmin says she doesn't have an issue with what I did, but kicking her out of her own birthday party in my house was maybe a bit much, and she left with her husband. Carter is supporting me, but says maybe I should apologize just so I can keep the peace. He doesn't want to come between my sisters and I. Zinnia went off on me when I called her a week later, told me I was an idiot. She was doing her job as a sister. Yasmin is just not even speaking about it because she doesn't want to take sides. I feel that I should apologize to keep the peace, but was I really the idiot for kicking her out of a party for her when she was that disrespectful? Not the idiot. She was drinking and behaving poorly. That's plenty of reason to send someone home. But the fact that she's in a relationship with a nearly identical age gap and a nearly identical starting point to yours makes me wonder if your sister is actually telling you some things about her relationship in her efforts to protect you. You are not the idiot. She was being purposely rude to you and your boyfriend in your own home. Her hypocrisy is enough to stand your ground on, but given how she treated you in your own home, it's you who is owed the apology. I get that Carter doesn't want to come between sisters, but he isn't. He's literally doing nothing but treating you well, and it's your sister who is out of line. You are all idiots here. When she made the first comment, you should have spoken with her privately and told her to knock it off or else. Her husband and your other sister are also idiots because they didn't do it before you would even have to. Making that scene was even more embarrassing to your partner and awkward to all the other guests. You and your sister both need to grow up. Me, 40 male, and my wife, 43, have 3 kids, older twins and youngest daughter. My son is gay. My wife doesn't hate him for it. She hasn't said it's wrong or threatened to kick him out. Well, at least not for the gay bit. But she does act like it's an annoyance or inconvenience. Earlier today, we, whole family, except youngest daughter, were watching a movie that had both of the twins' favorite actors. When my daughter's favorite came on scene, she made a comment on how attractive she thought he was. He looks good in a suit. My wife said nothing. 20 minutes later, my son's favorite came on and he made a similar comment. I forgot how good he looks in this movie. However, this time my wife rolled her eyes and made a loud over-the-top sigh. If I'm being honest, I'm sick and tired of how she treats our son and wanted to call her out on her nonsense. So I asked her what's wrong. She danced around the topic for a few minutes before blurting out that our son didn't have to be so gay on purpose. I reminded her that our daughter did the same about 20 minutes ago and she wasn't being too straight. I then called my wife a hypocrite and left. Almost immediately, both of the twins also left and went to their room. My son flashed me an apologetic smile on the way up. I know my wife doesn't hate our son, and I feel really bad for yelling at her and ruining the movie for the kids, and I could have just ignored her eye roll and moved on. But I just can't stand how she treats our son sometimes. Am I the idiot? Absolutely not the idiot. This was potentially a defining moment that could have made your son feel like he couldn't express himself to people in fear of being judged because kids notice things like this. That insecurity would have stuck with him, but now he knows you have his back and won't tolerate judgment from anyone, including your wife, and that you will protect him. You did the right thing by calling it out in an effort to shut it down. You're a good dad. You are not wrong. While she may not actively hate your son, it does seem she has a problem with him being gay, which is a problem. If she can't accept all of him, then does she really accept him at all? One of my children is not straight, and I can't imagine treating them that way, in any way differently than my straight kid. It just would not occur to me. You are not the idiot. I don't think it hurt for your son to see you have his back, but also talk to her privately. Your son doesn't need the guilt of thinking he has caused problems in your marriage, on top of knowing his mother is disappointed by who he is. Make sure he knows he can talk freely with you.